Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, click the bell icon to be notified when we upload new videos.
Hi, my name is Sunita Staneslow, and welcome to the Harp Gathering 2021. My workshop is all about the descending bass line. So what is a descending bass line? It's a bass line that goes down string by string, step by step in a scale, and this becomes your harmony. It opens up a left hand that can be in one direction and not as complicated, but yet sort of sophisticated sound in the harmonies. So I'll show you an example of what we're going to be working on in this workshop. A descending bass line in the key of G major. I just improvised with my right hand, staying around the idea of the chord of G because I went beyond the chord of G. But the scale in the key of G, focusing on G, it's in the key of G major, and the left hand, bass went down note by note in the scale. Let's take this step by step. You want to think of the bass line as being the source of the sound. So when you play your bass note, it's round, it's full, it's the sound that is clear enough for harmony or conversation to be part of this call and response or question and answer. A conversation between the left hand and the right hand. I use the descending bass line in teaching, in improvising, introductions, interludes, and for therapeutic harp music, because you can simplify the left hand down to one note at a time and either improvise or play a very simple melody. I use it in teaching as a way of, it's like a foolproof way of improvising because it sounds good almost no matter what you do. I'll show you the tricks I use to make sure that it will sound beautiful every time. We're in the key of G major, which means your Fs are sharp. You've raised any flats you have that you use on your harp. I tune my harp in 3 flats, so my E's, A's, and B's are up, plus the G. Now, even if you're more advanced, stick with me right now. I want you to go down step by step with just one finger and really listen to the tone. Are you playing in the middle of the string where you can often get the richest tone? Are you angling your finger a little bit sideways to get the soft part of the pad of your finger? Squeeze and release. You control how far you squeeze and when you release. And a gentle gesture and raise to the next string. Think of them as long tones, or just focusing on how it feels and sounds to make rich, beautiful scale sounds. We'll start on G and go down an octave to the lower G. Just second finger, left hand. we'll continue using our second finger for now because I want this sense of control of the sound that you can get with the second finger. If you used a scale, you can sometimes feel tight. Some fingers are stronger than others. They might poke out. And then you're focusing on the scale. I want you to feel buoyant with your left hand. You've offered this beautiful sound, and the right hand will respond. Let's start with one note at a time with the right hand, and we'll gradually add more and more and build up this conversation over the descending bass line. In the key of G, the seventh note of the scale, if your start on G is 1, the seventh note is a colored string, the blue string, the F. And the fourth tone is C, or the red string. Now, both the fourth and the seventh of a scale are a little bit more dangerous depending on what you're playing in the left hand. So when you're playing just one string, be careful of those red and blue strings in the key of G. And you can do a descending bass line in any key. Sounds best if it's a major key, not a minor key, because the minor key, you can't usually go all the way down the scale because our ear stops when we hit the major tone. And we think it's the major scale and not the minor. So why do I say those notes don't work? They just sound a little dangerous. They could be really clashing. Whereas if you only play the white strings, they all work. So, white string in the right hand, scale one by one with the left hand. Now let the right hand answer randomly, like it's question answer. Don't think you have to be on a particular beat. It's more like you're speaking. Okay, let's try it. Why am I starting with just one finger? Is I want to break away from the idea of landing on an exact beat. So you're just opening your ears more than practicing with your fingers, that the right hand can just almost like be a reflection, some kind of scattered sound that happens after your left hand. And it's very easy to just sink into a regular beat. And that will make your descending bass line pattern sound like it's not flowing in the same way, but just more of a kind of pattern that will sound less like an improvisation. So this rhythm is important. Let's do it one more time. So turn me on mute, certainly, if you want, and try to just answer. You don't need to play when I play. I just want to show you the idea. So you can pause if you want, or play along with me. Okay, now we're going to add 2 notes, 2 fingers in the right hand, and continue with 1 finger in the left hand. It's sometimes good, like what I just did. I'm almost leading to the next note, or I'm responding right away to the note. I'm not as much of a question as an answer, even from the get-go. I'm also kind of maybe asking a question. I'm leading to the next note. Now, when you play with 2 fingers, keep that in mind. You want to lead to another note. Now, this is less about rhythm and more about volume. If you play 2 strings, identical volume, they don't sound like a curve, like a conversation, or like it's leading or answering. One needs to be louder and the other softer. I like to think of the motion, a push and a release, a squeeze and less, or less and going somewhere. So you can use 2nd finger and thumb, or 3 and 2, or a combination. But I want you to be very, very aware that one finger will be louder and one will be softer. The left hand goes down in a steady, predictable beat. Right hand is less predictable. Let's try it with 2 fingers. Now, if you found that a little tricky, stop the video and try just even with your right hand alone. What is it like to make sure one is louder and one is softer? You're making a phrase. And I'm continuing to avoid the red and the blue strings. Okay, now let's add 3 fingers. And you can play 1 note, 2 notes, or 3 notes. Again, the same idea of a phrase with push and pull, leading somewhere. You can be less conscious of one note being louder than the other, but think of it as a little shape. And you don't have to go in order. You can go higher and lower. Let's say I did 3rd finger, thumb, and 2nd, or go in order. But try and keep it in a small interval so that you're not trying to do any fancy stuff yet. That's harder to shape and control. Left hand, again, is steady. Work with 3 fingers till you feel comfortable, or join me and stop the video, or join me now, and you can use 4 fingers. 4 fingers in a shape. Don't worry if you land on a C or an F sharp. Just don't stay there if it doesn't sound right. So let's say, I'll resolve it. It's a little bit of tension. I'll go 1 string higher or 1 string lower, so that those harmonies that maybe you don't want to linger on become beautiful because it's just a little bit of passion and then release. You can be a little bit more daring now and stretch your hand out. But I recommend never more than an octave. And then if it's an octave, switch to a scale that you reached high just to make a curve, and then your next few notes are close. Because if you start to make chords, then it won't be the same sound as improvising over a descending bass line, because the bass line is going down the scale, but it's essentially a G chord. We're in the key of G the entire time. Just the lowest note is changing. You can even be around the chord itself, G, B, and D. Add the ninth, the A, so you can be G, A, B, D, even octave in a fifth, and play around with a few notes close to it. But those are your magnets. You're a G chord essentially in the right hand, and the left hand against the G chord makes it an interesting harmony. If you try and make very specific different chords, then you're doing a chord progression. It's steering away from what gives a little bit of tension and release of the descending bass line. I'm just going to, for an example, show you my right hand will play G, B, D. I'll add the G on the top, going down for a little bit. So it's still a G chord. It's all about G chord, or the chord, whatever key you're in, over the bass descending. But it becomes a little more fluid and interesting if you add a few passing tones, a few extra notes around the chord. So reach for the shape that feels comfortable when you land. A scale with a little, maybe third or fourth, almost a chord with an extra note. If you land on a shape, then you can kind of play with it a little bit more. You can be more supple rather than if you're jumping all around, chances are that it's a little bit more jagged in the rhythm, more staccato. Think of making phrases, melodic phrases, over the descending bass line. You're essentially writing a song with the right hand as the left hand just plays one note at a time. Let's try it again. Feeling the shape lift. Don't play too many notes. It's like adding too much salt. There's going to be a point that it just doesn't taste good anymore. Here we go. Now I'm going to do a bunch of cycles, but I won't go all the way down to the G in the bass. I'll start with G and go down stepwise until I land on the A and then come back up. So it's easier to make a circle. If you go G all the way to G, you can keep going G to G, but it's as if you made sections. If you want to feel more like a continuous loop is being created, then stop on the A and come back to the G. So feel free to put it on mute or stop the video, experiment a little bit, because it takes a while to get the right hand to feel, that it will sound good no matter what you do. If you're doing this push and pull, if there's some kind of shape in your phrase and it's not always the same, trust me, it's foolproof. So let's do this again. Oh, I forgot. Now go back up. I'm going to now just play the left hand for you, and you can, if you want, just play the right hand. So you can play along with me, and we'll feel like we're doing a little bit more teamwork right now. I'm showing you, and maybe it gets too complicated why you might want to just put it on pause. But let's try playing together. I'll be the left hand, you can be the right. Or join me with the same beat. We'll do it in 4 beats to each bar, 1 note each bar, each sort of circle around. Go. Back to the G in the top. Take your time. You might learn this in a day, maybe in a week, but it won't take that much time if you're willing to just feel this conversation between left and right hand. I wonder sometimes why it's so hard on the harp to get the hands to really be coordinated. I think part of it is that we don't do a lot of free work in the very beginning of playing between left and right hand. The harp's not so easy, so we're working on technique. We're glad we got the right strings for the song, and the left hand is often very easy. It's where we have to start, right? But if you know you're improvising, so there's not really right and wrong notes, and you can start to feel the left and right hand work as a team, I think it can be a game changer, no matter what level you're at. Right and left are a team. I think it's because the harp divides the right from the left. And so we feel sometimes like they're 2 separate entities. So the descending bass line is a great way to warm up, just getting in sync with your body. But we've been playing with just 1 finger in the left hand. We're going to add a few more fingers. But I want to comment that the good thing about 1 finger at a time is it really makes you focus on the tone. But also, if you do therapeutic work, it keeps it pure and simple. So if I want to get somebody to fall asleep, let's say, I would do 1 finger in the left hand. I make it slower and softer. I'm going to wake you up now a little bit, but I hope you notice that I'm being buoyant with my hands. You're probably all from different techniques, and some of you are glued to the right hand part of the harp. But for feeling really free for improvising, I want to toss out the idea of connecting with your body, that the right and the left hand are equally free. They're equal team members in this. And you can go almost as if you were in water, or you're in a spaceship, or your arms are connected to balloons, or you're in the wind. Whatever makes a connection for you that you can think, oh, okay, Tai Chi, whatever makes you feel like you flow, this will help with your improvisation. But with the one finger at a time, as I'm getting lower on the harp and my right hand is more than an octave away, it feels like there's this gap and they don't connect as well with each other. So I do one of two things. I either just add the fifth of the G chord. So 5 up from G is D. And that's my connector. I'll start to play the descending bass line with my fourth finger and the D with my second finger. So it would be G to D, then F sharp to D, E to D. So the bass is descending, but I'm always going up to the D, the fifth, which then also reminds your ear that it's a G chord. Now, the D can start to sound monotonous, so you don't have to play it each time. And you don't have to play it before your right hand plays. It's an extra note that connects. So watch me for a second. Maybe not every time. Some people find that much easier just to go to a D. I actually feel like I have to think a little bit more about the rhythm, and I will play an octave and a fifth. So G with my fourth finger, D with my second, and the G above with my thumb. And then I'm really overlapping with my right hand so that there's more of a connection and teamwork between left and right. So your left hand would be G, D, G, then F, fourth finger, D, G again, E, D, G, D, D, G. Okay, so you're still descending with your fourth finger, but you've got 2 more notes. So that with your right hand, if you're just where you landed, maybe with 4 fingers or 3 and added 2, you can create some more interesting shapes and phrases and melodic patterns. So try it, put me on mute, or play with me. We're going to do several loops going down to the A and then back to the C. Feeling really free that the left and right answer. Arpeggio at the end, and my dog's here, and if he's not here then he might be scratching or barking, but he's pretty much falling asleep with the harp music. It's something that this descending bass line that I've done for hours and hours. I worked for a while with a project in the newborn intensive care unit, NICU, NICU, and I wanted this sense of exhale, and the beeping was in a sort of out of tune B and a D, and then when I played in the key of G, I really was almost in harmony with the whole unit. And it took practice to feel comfortable. So you may just sink right into it, or you may feel like it's hit and miss. But the key ingredients are always following how it feels and your ear. What kind of little shape are you creating? And be buoyant. Don't play too much. Create little lines, question, answer, flow, breath, and just enjoy what it feels like to play this descending bass line. So you don't have to keep thinking of which chord is next, but you do want to think of it as an improvisation that's a little bit unpredictable. So don't always play 1, 2, and, for instance, with your left hand. It's very easy to get stuck in the same pattern because our bodies just want to sink into a pattern rhythmically, and hover a little bit, and don't always play the second and thumb, and that pretty much should help you. I'll show a few more examples. Feel free to play with me or put this on pause and experiment on your own. I went down to the G, sorry. So when you're working on this, feel free to play with the tempo. If I'm going to use a descending bass line, let's say for an introduction to a piece in the key of G, I'll be in the tempo of the piece and maybe in the spirit or lightness and energy of a piece. For example, I'll think of it as more bouncy and light. I'm landing on shapes. I'm thinking of a little bit more push and pull with my fingers or the phrasing. I also like to jump an octave. Like I'm going up a hill and then starting to descend, or create little shapes that feel comfortable with my hand. And you might come up with something completely different, but it's important that it feels effortless. And I think that's something good for us to, when we play, to feel like, oh, it's effortless, instead of, I'm going to catch it, I'm going to do it, which is a downward movement versus the sense of bouncing, that you are light and you are buoyant and it sounds beautiful. So I find that empowering too. Feel frustrated, you can't get a piece going right. Give yourself the gift of a descending bass line, slow or fast. You can be soft or loud also. I'll do a softer one, but still pretty fast. You can hold it on that A. Get louder. And play 2 or 3 notes together if you want. Sort of in passing, but don't play a lot of chords. It won't sound the same. I'll show you. It doesn't have that lightness, but feel free to add an extra note here or there. Let your hands just think of They're in putty, they're in water, they're your finger painting. Enjoy the sense of a really supple hand. And I think that's great for our technique. We often focus very clearly on what notes we want, and then it takes us a long time to feel supple. So here we're going from the other side. Every note pretty much will be right, and we're going to make it supple. So I use this as an empowering tool. I think I use it for just about everything, for therapeutic work, and in the middle of pieces. Many pieces work with a descending bass line. Let's see. But maybe you have to move faster on one note. And you may end up only going down to the 7th note or the 2nd note and hold, and then come back. See how far you can get. So I'm not quite sure. Sometimes at the end, I just won't even play a note, or I'll go to a chord. You can mix and match. Do a descending bass line, land on a chord, do another descending bass line. Often 4 notes are good, especially if it's in a minor key. So G major has the same 1 sharp, F sharp, the same key signature as E minor. Now, when you go down in a minor scale, 4 strings, 4 notes, make a great loop. If you keep going down, our ear wants to stop on the G. It goes E, D, C, B, A to G. And so it doesn't feel like it wants to keep going down to the F sharp and the E. But if you do the loop, like we use it often, let's say in the slip jig, the butterfly, it's a great loop, 4 notes down. So minor can have a descending bass line, just not the whole scale. In a major key, you can do the whole scale and just loop it around and around. I love the descending bass line because I think of it as so flexible, malleable. I can use it fast in a quick interlude. I can use it in therapeutic music, going slower and softer. I can keep a steady beat also for therapeutic music with a descending bass line. And I don't then feel like I'm jumping around for different chords. So I feel a little bit more focused on creating phrases rather than catching all the right notes, which I think is important for us to balance music that's hard and music that we can just feel good about playing. Maybe warm up with a descending bass line. Warm up with single note. Really know what it feels like to get exactly the tone right away. We don't spend enough time, I think, as advanced players doing single notes. And you can get deeper and more in control just to warm up with a single note and then start growing your improvisation. And you can impress friends and family. You don't know what piece to play, you haven't practiced, you're sitting down trying to harp. You can do a descending bass line and add a few scale notes so it flows even more with your right hand. Now, one of those times I played the same note twice. So then I go to the right string. Don't start and stop like, oh, it's the wrong note. Just then, if you play the same note twice, go, or you leapt down, then go back up, because it's very forgiving. Enjoy it. I hope you use the descending bass line for something, even just for the pure joy of being able to sit down and create music. So I'll end this workshop with just an improvisation for you in the key of G. Keep it flowing, keep it melodic, push, pull, dive in to the pure joy of a descending bass line. Thanks.